Hi there, my name is Carol Kabaale. I am the founder and CEO of Best Ads, and I am so excited to share with you on today's episode. We are talking all about getting over your fear of funnels. How are we going to do this? By creating a predictable pipeline of warm leads. Head on over to find out how.
And hello, fabulous person. Beate Gillette here. I am the host of the Business Growth Architect Show, and I want to welcome you to today's episode where we discuss how to navigate strategy and spirituality to achieve time and financial freedom. Truly successful people have learned how to master both a clear intention and a strategy to execute that in a spiritual practice that will help them to stay in alignment and on purpose. Please enjoy the show and listen to what our guest today has to say about this very topic. Welcome back. Beate Gillette here, the host of the Business Growth Architect Show today with Carol Kabaale. And we are going to tackle something that you all know you need to do, and most of you really are not, let's say, really super excited about it. And that's nurturing leads, getting leads, finding leads, putting things in a pipeline or a funnel, and how to run them through while you're very busy doing all your other stuff. And I brought on Carol because Carol is going to give you some insights and different pointers on how we can make this happen. Carol, I'm excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I think it's going to be a good one.
It's going to be great. So, especially talking about a topic that, we must master, and we don't want to, because we rather do other things, right? So for somebody who's never heard of you, what do you do and what problem do you solve for your clients?
So I help female coaches, service providers create a pipeline of warm and predictable leads. And I do it with the assistance of Meta ads or Facebook ads.
But your stuff is not just for women. It works for everybody because we have a show that goes to everybody.
I don't mind. I like to work with women. Personally, that's my personal thing. But this works for anybody. Whatever you want to identify as, it will work for you. I promise.
Excellent. So we just want to make sure that nobody feels excluded at the beginning of the show. But I like that you actually said I prefer working with women, because we also going to talk about this in this particular show, how to set a preference of who you want to work with and how to be unapologetic about it, which I think is also an important topic. So thanks for giving me the lead right into this. What is the issue that so many people have with finding leads in the pipeline? Or are there multiple issues? What is it that makes it so difficult?
For me, I think the first issue is definitely consistency. We find ourselves, I think, as entrepreneurs most of us in this season of, I need to get clients. So you sell, you network, you show up, you do the emails, you do the stories, you do all your income generating activities, everything that you're meant to be doing. And then you sort of get comfortable because you hit a plateau of income, or you hit your maximum numbers of clients. And then for a while, you stop doing those things. They're no longer important. You're not creating the content. You're not showing up. You're not nurturing. You're not being consistent because you've hit this target. And then some people go away and you start going like, oh, no. Then you start again. So it's like this fast and fathom, like you have a lot and then it's gone away. And then you have a lot and then it's gone away. I think if we were just consistent every single day and we did a little bit every single day to remain top of mind, we would not run into this problem.
So, what's my mental issue with this? You say it like that. I agree with you. And I'm going like, yeah, she's completely right. Why am I not doing it?
For me personally, when I looked at it at myself, it was a deserving thing. I didn't feel like I deserved those nice things, or I deserved that income, or I deserved to reach those leaps and bounds. And then it really took me doing a lot of mindset work on why. Why don't I think I deserve it? Or maybe it was too easy. So it became a thing of like, well, I need to work hard and then I'll feel happy about it. So I think a lot of it is digging into oneself to identify what is actually blocking you. And I know that can feel easier to some people and you're like, oh, well, it's just this. But honestly, for me, it was a bandage. I had to just rip it open and do it even when it felt uncomfortable and do it when I didn't want to do it. But I do little things to trick myself into if it makes myself feel better. So, for example, I also sometimes don't like reaching out. I don't like starting conversations. I don't reply on Messenger. I'm not great at things like that. So what I do is I do it first thing in the morning. So I get it over and done with. And then afterwards, I spray some perfume because I'm a big perfume girly. And I love the smell of it and I linger in it. And that brings me joy again. And it makes me feel like, oh, that icky thing I didn't want to do is now gone. And then I go and have a coffee and then I come back and I try again.
Oh my God, it's like Maslow's dogs, right? So you're creating a sensory experience as a reward for yourself. I've never heard that before. I may just try that myself.
Oh, I love perfume. I think it just brings me back, especially if you find one. I can't even lie to you. Look, it's like literally on my desk. I always have a bottle of perfume on my desk. And whenever I feel a little bit, ugh, I associate the feeling of the perfume with like a happy memory. It just instantly brings me back to my why, to my purpose. And it's just a quick little fix that I do. Yeah.
That is amazing. I've heard a lot of things. This is not one of the things I've heard yet, but definitely worth a try. So let's talk about the tough part about this. Let's say I know who my audience is, right? So I've done my avatar.
Yes.
And now I'm looking at this and I'm going like, I sort of know where they are. And now I need to build my funnel. How do I go about building a funnel? How do I go about building a pipeline that has this consistency you talk about?
So, first of all, I would say pick one channel. And when I mean a channel, I would say if you're going to choose Instagram, for example, commit to it for a certain period of time. It can be 90 days, it can be a year, it can be longer than that, but you need to commit to it so that you can understand what works for that channel and what doesn't. And within that channel, you don't need to do all the features. I mean, flip on Instagram, you can do like Facebook, you can do stories, you can do carousels, you can do images, you can do reels. Like there's so many. Perfect one. Choose one. And if you're like me and you sometimes get bored, be sneaky, choose two. But that's okay. But the point is, you're trying to choose one so that you can see where the holes are in your funnel or your customer journey. So, usually, let's say it was a story, for example, you post a story and then you have a call to action. Well, how many people actually took the call to action? They DM'd you or they clicked on the link, they took the next step. Once you have them there, you have identified that that section of the funnel works. For me, I'd like to say at least 5 or 10 positive actions is a good indication, right? And then you want to move to the next step. After they've clicked, after they've DM'd, what is your next step? Where are you taking them? Always asking them why and being of service. Don't just sell. Please don't just sell. It's so annoying. We get pitched all the time. Like, be of service, be intentional. If you can help these people, sort them out into groups, like segment them and be like, okay, this is the solution. This is the solution. Can I be of service? That's where I believe you should come from. Then once you've done that, you identify that conversation. If you've got a conversion, so they've bought your thing or they've taken you up on that offer, you can see that your funnel has now been validated, right? Then I would say, great, let's work on another aspect. But until you've done that, truly, I don't think you should move forward because you're kind of just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping it fits. You know, if you can't tell me every time I make a story, this action is likely to happen, then you really haven't mastered that channel yet.
I love that. I like sort of the simplicity of it. If I follow the big internet marketers, because they've perfected a system that works for them.
Mm-hmm.
So a Russell Brunson or an Alex Hormozy or a Grant Cardone, all white men,
Yes.
all sort of have a similar feel about it, right?
Yes.
About trying to get other white men with a promise of little work, a lot of money, just being bold, running around in a tank top or being on private planes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
Very
so
bro
that
marketing.
yeah, very, very bro, right? So it's being set up in a particular promise that if you follow my system that works for me, that you also will be successful. What is the problem that comes with that kind of promise that you see? when they come to you? Probably frustrated by the time they come to you.
Yeah, no, by the time they come to me, they're very frustrated because they've tried everything. Well, everything. And now I'm here to say, okay, but let's take a deeper dive of what you have. And very quickly I can identify that there are holes in the system. Like usually there's not a next step. Usually what they're giving, because we're all told, give a value, create a lead magnet, give this freebie away, give the stuff, and then people will come. What you're giving, sometimes it's not even a value because you have the scarcity mindset of, if I give them an actual solution, why will they buy from me? I've heard plenty of my clients say that, like, no, we can't give them all the steps. I'm not saying give them all the steps. I'm telling you, give them one step that's really going to create change, that's really going to be of service. And that in itself will trigger them to be like, oh my word, I do have that problem. Let me see how I can fix it. And Carol's probably the person to help me with it. I want you to create that positive experience when they meet you instead of what we are told, which is sell to them, sell to them, sell to them. Don't let them leave. Be very aggressive. Go with like negative things like, oh, you probably, no. People buy from people and they buy when they want to, not when you want.
Have you seen, Carol, have you seen that change? For me personally, I've seen this change dramatically in the last year. Like all this, there's only 2 spaces left, and everybody goes like, yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Or, last chance, or we're going to retire this particular version and then it'll never come again. Right. Because if it sells successfully, you're going to retire it. What stupidity is that? That's all just clickbait, right? So have you seen this change? Is the tone of advertising changing?
For me, I think anybody who is heart-centered, anybody who is a person who wants to be of service in whatever way, and you don't vibe with what we've just described, leading with honesty, I feel has the best impact. Because in a world where everything is clickbait and everything is like get rich quick and whatever, you being honest and being like, this is what I can actually help you with, and this is how I do it, and this is how it can help you. I've seen that help so many of my clients without having millions of followers or without having huge advertising budgets, by just staying in your lane and being truthful. It's funny, like, that saying, the truth will set you free. It really does.
We lost our home, and my office burned with a podcast studio in the Palisades fire about 2 months ago. And it's been an interesting journey because when you go through a life-changing, traumatic experience like this, it looks like an apocalypse. You have to really think about what you value, because your time now is, I mean, the time was already constrained before, but now with all this other stuff, with insurances and with rebuilding your lives and finding your second pair of pants and a second pair of shoes. And what I have found, that what you're talking about, the honesty, is really something like something's happening and I can't even explain what it is. So, in your experience, what is it that's happening for me? I can probably best explain it that the burden or the magnitude of this is so intense that it is too big for me to carry. So, first time in my
Yeah.
life, I have to ask for help. I have to ask for my community, and my community has shown up. So, if I formularize this in
Mm-hmm.
your system, right? What's happening here that we may be able to tell the audience, well, don't wait until you're in an apocalypse. But the what is it about this honesty, and how do I become honest in this?
Do you know that word authenticity or being authentic was used very often to the point that I think we killed that word or we used it incorrectly. But I think people are starting to wake up and actually reclaim that word and actually to live in that word. The thing is, there's too much smoke and mirrors, and people are starting to see past it. And the things that used to excite people before, like, even if you think about it in this way, like when we were younger, we used to worship celebrities. Celebrities have now been replaced with influencers, and influencers will one day be replaced with AI bots. We're turning into this world where everything is shifting. But what stays the same and what people are trying to cling on to is some form of truth, is some form of reality. And it doesn't mean you need to have the best of everything. It just needs you to show up as your authentic self, not your authentic self for the internet. If your authentic self doesn't wear makeup, then don't wear makeup. If your authentic self doesn't like to do their hair, then don't do their hair. For many years, I myself struggled with this. I had a internet Carol, if you can call it that, or a Carol that would show up. And I just don't see the point in that anymore. It's every day. And I sympathize so much with what you've gone through. I went through not as terrible as losing my home, but I went through a home invasion and I was home alone and there were men in my house. And I survived it and I was unharmed. But in that, I learned how fragile life is and
Oh
how
my
we
God.
focus on things that just don't matter. Being of service matters, helping people matters. And that's what I love to do. I want to take the right people and I want to amplify them because life is short. You really don't know.
Wow, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I can't even imagine. But it's absolutely true. Once you go through a life-changing event like this, your whole viewpoint changes because you realize that if this particular scenario wouldn't have unfolded the way it did, if just one tiny little thing would have changed, my husband would have been the last one with the garden hose on the roof because he would have thought that he alone can save the house because that's just the kind of person he is. Would he even have made it out alive? We don't know. One of our neighbors didn't make it. And we think about these things as these moments of, it's almost like a truth moment where you're being shaken to the core. And frankly, I see this everywhere right now. I see this with this ridiculous language that's being used, specifically in politics, how people talk to each other. And then I see this massive counter movement, specifically on Substack, which I'm obsessed with now because I feel that there are a lot more honest conversations now that I've been missing. So the honesty you're talking about now, authenticity, or even the clarity who you are today. So, how do I drop the act? How do I drop my own
I
act?
think you just have to. So I would say, I think for not everybody is going to be able to just do it. And I don't wish anybody to go through anything life changing as we have to trigger that awakening or that sense of alignment. But what I can say is, I want you to sort of try and trigger a safe experience of that. I was watching a documentary and it was about dinosaurs. And don't quote me on it because I just watch things and then I don't remember half of it, but I remember the principle. So the lady was saying that the dinosaurs had been here for like, let's say 30 years in human years, right? Obviously, they were here for longer. Humans have only existed on this planet for like less than a minute in the entirety of the planet. And if you think about it that way, we are so minute, we are so insignificant. And if we are so easily forgotten, then what does it matter? What does it matter if you show up and your neighbor says something about you, or your mother says something about you, or some random person on the internet types something because they're bored? It doesn't really matter. And because it doesn't matter, that's why you should show up. That's why you should live in your authentic truth, whatever it is for you, because it doesn't matter whether you're great or you're not great. People always have an opinion. So go out there.
Yeah, Tasha Silva's book, It's Not Your Money, comes to mind, where she talks exactly about that. She says, well, you're just borrowing it while you're here.
Yeah.
The whole idea of money is like you're just borrowing it. So you create it, you spend it, you create it, you spend it, and then you leave and you take it not with you. So why you're stressing out over this? And when you right, and then when you listen to this, you go like, well, she kind of does have a point. It's kind of an awkward point, but there certainly is a point to it. So another thing that we were hinting on earlier, which I think is important to talk about, to look at the spiritual or the intuitive principles of the show. You said, I prefer to work with women. And you said it in a in the beginning of a show that's not specific for women, that's a show for all business owners and
Correct.
all and everybody. How do you step into this unapologetic aspect of the clarity of this is who I want to work with and
For
then
me,
own that?
For me, it was trial and error in the beginning of my business. So I've been doing this for like 9 years now. And in the beginning, I said yes to everything because I do believe that you should try everything at least once within reasons of your own boundaries. But for me, my
Okay.
boundaries are pretty broad. Let's try something at least once. And in the beginning, I worked with a lot of men. And I just always found that it was very much out of alignment for various reasons. And a lot of it, I also realized that was my own wounds coming through and projecting themselves in the work. My parents got divorced when I was very young. I didn't really have my dad around, and I have friction with men sometimes. Not with my husband. I love him. He's fine. He's one of the ones I've approved. But other men, I have issues against. And that's okay. That's my own personal journey and things I need to work through. And it wasn't fair for me to harbor that on my clients. And when I proposed things and they were challenged, it felt like I had to defend myself, and it always felt like I had to be like, and be tensed. Yet with my female clients, it felt like we were all in the sisterhood. We were all having a great pajama party and we were the best of friends as if we've known each other for years. And a part of me was like, why am I putting myself through this? Like, I have the best time with these women. And I'm just keeping these other male clients around for the income. I was like, no, there's always more money. There's always more opportunity. So I made a decision, and slowly but surely, I started to literally fire my clients. And I said, hey, it's nothing personal. I just can no longer be of service to you. And I gave them all of alternatives, and they're all really happy with the suggestions I made. So it wasn't like from a prejudice place. I just felt like to be of service and to give them the best of me, I couldn't do that. So that's why I prefer to work with women.
And I'm sure this did not come without a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of soul searching and fear and anxiety. How long did it take you to step into this? Because one of the spiritual principles we talk about
Mm.
on our show a lot is that there is, every time you get to that next step, there is friction. It has a lot of bumps in it, is what I want to say. Because you're being tested on whether or not the resolve is really there.
Yep.
How did you manage that? Because I'm sure you had to go back and forth a couple of times. Was there a particular time frame? Any advice you can give us on when it happened to say, okay, this is what to be expected. It's happening right now. Go.
So I would say life will give you the same situation until you choose differently. It will always do that. Life will always give you the same situation, especially when it's not for you, until you choose differently. When I first made this decision or this awakening of like, hey, I don't need to be working with men, I found that I only had most of my income came from men. So of course I had fear. I interpret fear in my body as physical illness, like I physically get sick. Whenever I am in a state of growth, it's like my body betrays me. Like you said, it's like a test. And it's because it's trying to keep me safe. I had to learn that. It's like my body is trying to keep me safe from moving forward. So it self sabotages me to stay. That being said, when you see those things, they may be different for you, but identify what is the recurring pattern. And when it happens, you really need to just step into your power. You need to just be, hey, I see this, I acknowledge it, but I'm not going to choose this again. I'm going to move past this. And it may be so difficult because, like you said, life is testing you, but you need to push through. The only way you're going to get through it is to push through. And it doesn't mean you need to be at 100% every single day. Moving even 1%, my husband actually taught me this, gave me this great lesson. There were days where I was like on the couch and I just like was a starfish. I couldn't move. I couldn't be bothered. I was so depressed. And my husband was just like, do what you need to do, like the smallest little things, and everything else will sort itself out. And that's what I did. I showed up for my clients and like the work that had to be done, and everything else I released. And I said, nope. And then I did it again, and I was able to do a little bit more and a little bit more till I got through it. I think consistency, like I said in the beginning, is really important here because failure to choose differently will result in the same outcome. And that's not only in business.
I have this saying, Carol, where I say that the pain of staying where you are has to be greater than your fear of change.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. That I'm wearing
Right?
gloves, I'm wearing things, but I have goosebumps here
Y-
for people listening.
yeah.
That you can feel
So
them on my arm.
if there's no pain of you staying where you are, there's no reason for you to change. We don't change when we have a great day and everything is going wonderfully. That would be ridiculous. That would be counterproductive. But when the pain is sitting heavy on our shoulders, we are moving into a direction. And how did you spiritually manage trust and faith in making this decision and then sticking to it? Because I think that is a sticking point. How do I trust that this is the right decision?
So for me, I feel like that's been a hard one. I constantly
Mhm.
question myself after I've made a choice, but I don't let the fear of that control me. Another thing that I don't do is I don't announce my moves or my decisions. I used to be a person who always needed to co-sign things. So whether it was my husband or my friends or my girlfriend, like always running it past someone. Sometimes you just need to listen to that little voice or listen to your gut. For me, it's in my gut. I always have this feeling right here in my gut. And that little feeling, when I trust it, great things have always happened. When I choose to ignore it, interesting things happen. Let's put it that way. And just remaining in your faith that life wouldn't give you things if they weren't for you. Some things are there, but it wouldn't give you things. You know, Christian people say God doesn't give you things that you cannot handle. And I believe that to be very true. I do. The universe and life would not give you the situation if it didn't think you were capable enough of choosing differently, of staying the course, of doing the work. We're all human at the end of the day. It's a choice. So, what are you choosing? You've got to choose it with all your heart. Another thing that really anchored me is remembering my why. My why is really big. My why is choice. I've always wanted to have choice because of things that happened in my life and because of the way I grew up. Other people always decided for me. And I made a conscious choice of that's not going to be me. I refuse that. No, thank you. And that being said, I chase that. And I remind myself all the time how grateful I am that I get to not have to go to an office, that I get to sometimes just be here in my office in my pajamas. Not today, though, but other days. And it's that
Thank you for
gratitude.
dressing up for us.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's that gratitude that really centers me. It's that gratitude that reminds me, hey, this is why you're doing this. And it's what keeps me going forward.
What a great way to end our interview, Carol. Thank you so much for being here. And for somebody who now wants to know how to overcome their fear of funnels, where do we send them? How do they learn more about you and how to work with you?
So, like I said before we got here, everywhere on the internet, my name is just Carol Kabaale. You can go and find me. But if you are interested in running ads to amplify your message or really to find your people, I have a great quiz. It's literally like 2 minutes long. And you can take the quiz and it will tell you if you should be running ads and what to do before you run them. So, yeah, take the quiz and find out before you spend your money.
I love that. Wonderful. Well, Carol, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate your insights, and I always learn something.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to your audience for just receiving my message. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And that's it for us for today. Thank you so much for listening to or watching this episode of the Business Growth Architect Show. We live at the intersection of spirituality and strategy to really fuse the two together. And you've heard it again and again and again. When you're living in purpose, no matter what the execution of the strategy is, when the inner aligns with the execution on the outer, you are going to be just so much more successful. Let's not even talk about how much more fun you have in your life and how much more fulfilling it is. Anybody who is biting their teeth out right now on how to figure out how to get their leads, maybe share this link to the episode with them and help them to figure out something that needs to be figured out to live in abundance and prosperity. And with that, I say goodbye for today. So appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for listening to the entire episode. Please subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star review, a comment, and share this episode with one more person so that you can help us help more people. Thank you again. Until next time. Goodbye.